Introduction. What is practice and why is it necessary? In life, people always seek happiness and try to avoid suffering. However, suffering exists in many forms, from worries, disappointments, and mental distress to real-life difficulties, losses, and emotional pain. This raises an important question: how can people end suffering and achieve lasting peace? Buddhism teaches that the root cause of all suffering is ignorance, a lack of correct understanding about life, about others, and about oneself. Because of this ignorance, people often develop mistaken perceptions, which then lead to wrongful actions, causing suffering for both themselves and others. Therefore, changing one's perception is the key to changing one's actions and achieving a better life. In Buddhism, this process of transformation is called practice, cultivation. When people hear the term practice, they often associate it with religious rituals, vegetarian diets, chanting, or renouncing material life to live in a monastery. However, the true meaning of practice goes much deeper. According to the Buddhist teachings, practice is the process of correcting one's perceptions and behaviors to transform suffering and attain wisdom and true peace. It does not necessarily have to take place in a temple or religious setting, it can happen in everyday life, in any situation. But to practice effectively, we must first understand what actually controls human behavior. Is it external circumstances, habits, personal willpower? According to Buddhism, all human actions originate from a fundamental element, consciousness. Consciousness is the determining factor of behavior. Human behavior does not arise randomly. Every word spoken, every action taken, and even every facial expression is rooted in a thought process within the mind. In other words, consciousness is the director of behavior, the steersman that determines a person's course in life. 1. Consciousness directs all actions. Consider a simple situation: someone insults you. Your reaction could be anger and retaliation, or it could be calmness and indifference. The external event remains the same, but your response is determined by how you perceive the situation. If you see the insult as an attack that must not be tolerated, you will become angry. But if you understand that the other person might be going through difficulties or that their words are insignificant, you won't be affected. This demonstrates that it is not the situation itself that dictates our actions, but rather how we perceive it, our consciousness. 2. Wrong consciousness leads to wrong actions. When human consciousness is clouded by ignorance, people develop mistaken perceptions, which lead to actions that cause suffering. For example, someone may believe that money is the only measure of success, and because of this belief, they might engage in deceit, dishonesty, or even harm others to achieve financial gain. Another person might think that fame and power are the most important things, and because of this, they manipulate or oppress others to climb the social ladder. In both cases, wrong actions do not come from inherent evil but from mistaken perceptions about life's values. If these individuals understood that true happiness does not come from wealth or power but from inner peace, compassion, and wisdom, they would not act in such ways. This is why, in Buddhism, changing behavior must go hand in hand with changing consciousness. If we only attempt to modify actions without correcting the underlying perception, any change will be temporary. 3. The importance of mental karma in Buddhism. In many other religions, spiritual practice often focuses on external actions, such as performing rituals or engaging in charitable deeds. However, in Buddhism, the most crucial element is not external actions but mental karma, the thoughts and perceptions within the mind. There is a well-known story about a Buddhist monk during the Buddha's time. He strictly followed all religious rules and never broke any precepts, but in his mind, he constantly judged and looked down on others. The Buddha remarked that no matter how perfectly he followed the rules, if his mind lacked compassion and wisdom, he had not truly cultivated himself. This story illustrates that if we only change our actions without transforming our consciousness, the practice is meaningless. Consciousness is the root of all actions. If the mind is pure, right actions will naturally follow. 4. Applying this understanding to life, changing consciousness to change behavior. If we want to improve our lives, instead of merely controlling our actions, we must first train our consciousness. This can be done through several methods. Observing and adjusting thoughts. When a negative thought arises, such as jealousy, anger, or greed, pause and ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it beneficial? Cultivating positive and compassionate thinking. Learn to view situations with empathy and understanding. Instead of reacting angrily when someone makes a mistake, ask yourself whether they might be facing difficulties. Practicing meditation and mindfulness. Keep your mind present and aware in each moment, preventing negative thoughts from dominating your actions. Studying and reflecting. Read scriptures and learn philosophical teachings to replace incorrect perceptions with accurate understanding. Conclusion. Human behavior is merely an external expression of what happens in the mind. Therefore, to change wrongful actions, the most important step is to change one's consciousness. Right understanding leads to right actions, and right actions lead to true happiness and peace. This is the foundation of Buddhist practice. The importance of mental karma in Buddhism. In many spiritual traditions, moral conduct is often evaluated based on physical actions, bodily karma, and spoken words, verbal karma. However, in Buddhism there is an even more critical factor, mental karma. The Buddha emphasized that thoughts precede actions and words, and they determine whether an action is truly wholesome or unwholesome. This understanding makes mental karma the most crucial aspect of ethical cultivation in Buddhism. 1. What is mental karma? Mental karma refers to the thoughts, intentions, and mental tendencies that arise within a person's consciousness. Every action and word originates from a specific mindset, whether it is driven by greed, hatred, or delusion, or by generosity, compassion, and wisdom. For example, a person who harbors hatred in their mind will eventually express it through harsh words or harmful actions. A person dominated by greed might continuously pursue personal gain at the expense of others. Conversely, someone who cultivates loving kindness will naturally speak gently and act in ways that benefit others. This demonstrates that mental karma is the root of all actions. If the root is pure, the resulting actions and words will naturally be wholesome. If the root is tainted, the consequences will be negative. 2. Why is mental karma more important than physical and verbal karma? In Buddhist ethics, intentions matter more than external actions. A seemingly good action performed with a selfish or deceitful motive is not truly virtuous. Conversely, an action that may appear insignificant on the surface, when done with sincere compassion, can have profound merit. A. Actions without right intention are superficial. A well-known Buddhist story recounts a wealthy man who donated generously to temples and charities. However, his inner motive was to gain fame and respect. Upon his passing, his merit was far less than that of a poor person who shared even a small portion of their food out of genuine kindness. This story underlines the principle that true merit comes from pure intentions, not merely from outward actions. B. Words without pure intention can be deceptive. Even the most eloquent speech can cause harm if it is motivated by manipulation, deception, or selfish desires. The Buddha taught that even gentle-sounding words, when tainted by greed or dishonesty, lose their virtue. In contrast, a few sincere words spoken with wisdom can bring immense benefit. In this way, mental karma determines the true value of verbal expressions. 3. How mental karma shapes future lives. Buddhism teaches that karma is not confined to a single lifetime, it extends across multiple rebirths. While physical and verbal karma manifest through external actions, mental karma accumulates deeply within a person's consciousness, influencing future rebirths. For instance, a person constantly consumed by greed and attachment may be reborn in lower realms. A person steeped in anger and hatred might find themselves in realms of suffering. Conversely, one who develops wisdom and compassion will experience fortunate conditions or may even attain liberation. Thus, mental karma is the primary force shaping a person's destiny. This is why the Buddha stressed the need to purify the mind as the key to breaking the cycle of suffering, samsara. 4. Methods to purify mental karma. Since mental karma determines the entire trajectory of one's life, it is essential to cultivate a pure and disciplined mind. The Buddha outlined several effective methods for transforming negative mental karma into positive, wholesome karma. A. Right view and right understanding. Study the Buddha's teachings. This helps correct mistaken perceptions. Reflect on impermanence. Recognize the transient nature of life to reduce attachment and greed. Cultivate empathy. Understand that all beings seek happiness and wish to avoid suffering, which fosters genuine compassion. B. Mindfulness and meditation. Practice mindfulness. Observe your thoughts carefully to avoid being controlled by negative emotions. Engage in meditation. Regular practice calms the mind and enhances inner awareness. C. Ethical conduct and compassion. Avoid harmful thoughts. Refrain from jealousy, resentment, and arrogance. Develop kindness and generosity. Actively cultivate positive thoughts that lead to beneficial actions. Conclusion. Mental karma is the foundation of all human actions. By transforming our mental habits and cultivating a pure mind, we can change our words and actions, leading to a more peaceful and fulfilling life. The Buddhist teachings highlight that while the mind is the root of suffering, it also holds the key to liberation. When we nurture wisdom, compassion, and inner peace, right actions and words will naturally follow, creating a ripple effect that benefits both ourselves and the world around us. 3 mini methods of eliminating afflictions according to this Sabbasava Sutta. In Buddhism, afflictions, kleshas, are negative mental states that cause suffering and trap individuals in the cycle of samsara, birth and rebirth. The Sabbasava Sutta, Discourse on All the Taints, presents 7 methods to eliminate afflictions, guiding practitioners toward mental purification and ultimate liberation. These methods are not just theoretical but practical applications that can be integrated into daily life. 1. Eliminating afflictions through right view, try knowledge. Right view, samadhi, is a correct understanding of reality, including impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. The Buddha emphasized that afflictions arise from ignorance, the inability to see the true nature of existence. Understanding impermanence reduces attachment to material things and status. Recognizing suffering as inherent in life helps us accept and transform hardships instead of resisting them. Realizing non-self dissolves ego clinging, leading to the reduction of greed, hatred, and delusion. Practical application: studying Buddhist teachings, practicing right thinking, and cultivating wisdom through contemplation. 2. Eliminating afflictions through restraint. Afflictions arise not only from within but also through external stimuli entering via the six senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. The Buddha taught sense restraint to prevent external influences from disturbing inner peace. Eyes: avoid looking at objects that stimulate desire or aversion. Ears: refrain from listening to gossip or harmful speech. Nose, tongue, body: regulate indulgence in sensory pleasures. Mind: maintain mindfulness to prevent negative thoughts from taking control. Practical application: practicing mindfulness, sati, filtering external stimuli, and avoiding harmful influences. 3. Eliminating afflictions through proper use, wise consumption. The Buddha taught that suffering does not arise from material possessions themselves but from how we use them. When wealth is used to help others, it creates good karma. When possessions are used for selfish indulgence, they fuel craving and attachment. Practical application: practicing contentment, santuthi, consuming mindfully, and avoiding overindulgence. Using resources for beneficial purposes rather than personal gratification. 4. Eliminating afflictions through endurance, patience. Patience, khanti, is the ability to endure difficulties without reacting with anger or frustration. When insulted, instead of retaliating, understand that the offender is also suffering. When facing hardship, view it as an opportunity for inner growth. When feeling overwhelmed, turn inward to acknowledge and process emotions instead of letting them control you. Practical application: practicing right speech, avoiding arguments, and cultivating compassion. Developing tolerance and understanding others' perspectives. 5. Eliminating afflictions through avoidance. Some afflictions cannot be confronted directly and should be avoided to protect oneself. A person prone to anger should avoid situations that provoke irritation. Someone susceptible to temptation should stay away from environments that fuel desire. Those easily drawn into gossip should distance themselves from harmful social circles. Practical application: understanding one's limits and choosing a suitable environment for spiritual growth. 6. Eliminating afflictions through removal. Some afflictions must be confronted and eradicated immediately rather than avoided. When greed arises, contemplate impermanence to realize that nothing lasts forever. When anger arises, remind yourself that resentment harms yourself more than others. When delusion arises, use wisdom to discern right from wrong. Practical application: practicing meditative insight, vipassana, to recognize afflictions and transform them before they take root. 7. Eliminating afflictions through cultivation, practice and training. Spiritual cultivation is about replacing unwholesome habits with wholesome ones. Without continuous practice, afflictions will return. Meditation fosters mental clarity and calmness. Generosity, dana, counteracts greed. Loving kindness, metta, counteracts anger. Mindfulness, sati, counteracts ignorance. Practical application. Following the Noble Eightfold Path, integrating ethical and wisdom-based living into daily routines. Conclusion. The Sabbasava Sutta provides 7 practical methods for eliminating afflictions, allowing individuals to purify the mind, reduce suffering, and progress toward enlightenment. These methods are not rigid doctrines but flexible approaches applicable to different situations. Right view fosters deep understanding. Restraint prevents external distractions. Wise consumption promotes mindful use of resources. Patience strengthens endurance in adversity. Avoidance protects against unnecessary suffering. Removal directly eliminates harmful tendencies. Cultivation builds lasting positive qualities. By consistently practicing these methods, individuals can attain inner peace and move closer to liberation, following the Buddhist teachings.